What's going on, by this is CC3 here, back to a brand new video, more college football reaction. Week 12, as I mentioned, gonna be a really big week for a lot of teams trying to make the playoffs. And we're determined that some teams make it and some teams don't. A lot of good matchups. Let's get right into it. Again, also want to mention that I'll be doing these on Tuesday now instead of Sunday, as the AP Bowl comes out on Sundays. But now that we're towards the later half of the season, the college football playoff rankings are out, and those are the real rankings. And they oversee the AP rankings. So the AP rankings don't really matter anymore. It's your rankings in this new set of rankings. So Tuesday nights will be the new day to do this. First off, we got number 8 Oregon and Minnesota. No shock here. They handle business pretty easily. 42-13. Dante Moore has 306 yards. Clemson upsets Louisville. Um, Louisville had a horrible game. They had 8 penalties, 5 of which were unsportsmanlike conducts. They had like 3 missed field goals and an extra point. Louisville just beat themselves this game, and Clemson gets upset and get back to 500 on the year. Got to see win despite a disappointing season. Ohio State played in UCLA. No shock here, they dominate 48-10. Julian Sain only had 141 yards and had one of his worst passing games, 23-31. I'm assuming they ran the ball a lot more, had more success on the run. 112, that's not too bad. They dominate, but not really a successful game offensively. Indiana playing Wisconsin here. It's blowout Indiana. And does almost 300 yards. They're looking scary, I gotta tell you. Indiana's the real deal. A&M vs. Carolina, I can see here at the half. A&M was down 30-3, and then go on a 28-0 run in that second half to win by 1 point. An historic comeback victory. Moss Reed, after starting the game off horribly, ends up having 439 yards. And it was an insane game to watch that comeback. I remember I was actually at work down halftime, and I was like, this is insane, but it's not over. Watch them come back in that second half, and they start scoring and scoring and scoring. I'm like, here they come, here they come. And they probably could have put up about 48, to be real with you. They had some woes there at the end, but that second half looked like a blowout. A&M squeezed by the big victory and remain undefeated. Oklahoma and Alabama, this was kind of a bigger upset than most people think. Really kind of Oklahoma out of this game, especially being that it was at Bama. Oklahoma, credit to their amazing defense, one of the best defensive lines in the nation, in my opinion. They win 23-21. Again, off a defensive stand in the late the fourth quarter, holding Alabama to only 7 points in that second half. Texas falls to Georgia, 35-10. Now this game looks a bit out of hand. There really wasn't. I personally would blame pretty much everyone on the team but Arch Manning in terms of the offense. Running game wasn't getting going at all. Offensive line wasn't playing too well. But the worst part of the game were the receivers. There were 8 drop passes, many of which were on critical third downs. Not only that, but there were a lot of penalties. There was also about 8 penalties, many of which, again, were also drive killers. Because like you're getting a good drive going, and then you get a penalty that maybe negates a first down, or instead of a second and short, it's a first and long, and that does kill drives. And because they were on the field less and killing drives, Georgia football got the ball more on offense. Arch Manning played fantastic. All of his passes, except for literally one, were on the dime. They just weren't catching it. Sloppy game. No discipline. Texas was a very winnable game. I think if Texas had made all those passes and hadn't had those penalties, this game could have been flipped with you. I think Texas shot themselves in the foot. Like the woes that played this team at the very beginning of the season came back to haunt them in this game, and it was really disappointing to see. Like it's a game you want back because I definitely think Texas could have and should have won that game. But hey, that's the way the world. That's the way the world goes. Always next year. UCF and Texas Tech. Texas Tech, 10-1, blowing out UCF. They are looking dangerous. I tell you that oil money, all those millions coming in handy. Their defensive line alone is worth $6 million. See, they're not a lot of passing yards, but they still win a lot. Florida and Ole Miss. Florida upset Ole Miss last year, which pretty much got them out of the playoffs last year. This year, Ole Miss survives late. Only team to score in that second half with 14 points late to secure the comeback victory in a tight game. James was 301 yards. Lacey had 224 rushing yards. Wow. Notre Dame handles business and dismantles Pittsburgh, and that pretty much says that they're in the playoffs because they just smashed. They've been smashing everybody since they lost to Miami and A&M. And honestly, if they played Miami again, I think they would smash them. That was a fluke loss, in my opinion. Notre Dame is pretty much going to be in the playoffs in a lock. TCU and BYU, smackdown, 44-13. The race for the Big 12 is on. Utah smacks Baylor, 55-28. Miami smacks NC State, 41-7. Georgia Tech smacks Boston College. Oh, they don't. Wow, they nearly lose to Boston College, who had not won a game in the SEC. A big comeback, actually, as you can see in that fourth quarter, 19 points. So they came back and won, 36-34, and what would have been a huge loss for Georgia Tech. It might have got them out of the playoffs if they lost that game. USC handles business against Iowa. Narrow victory, 26-21. Still control their own destiny. They could definitely make the playoffs if they make some upsets. That's 6-1 in the Big Ten. Michigan survives Northwestern, 24-22. Bryce Underwood, no touchdowns, but 2 interceptions. Interesting. Virginia handles Duke, 34-17. Tennessee smacks New Mexico State, 42-9. No shock there. South Florida gets upset by Navy. And Navy is now 6-1. The American. South Florida is 4-2, and pretty much out of the American race. Big time loss to South Florida, who were looking like the group of Power 5 teams to be in the playoffs, but they will not make it now. Arizona upsets, quote unquote, I don't think that's really that big of an upset, but beats Cincinnati in their first time rank in the rankings. So, before we go into the rankings, let's go into the rankings real quick. See what's shaking up. Again, we no longer look at this, we're looking at this, because this determines if you make the playoffs and your bowl games. This has no relevancy anymore whatsoever. Top 3 have not changed. Makes sense. Georgia goes up 1 after their win against Texas. Makes sense. Texas Tech back in the top 5. Ole Miss right behind them at 6. Oregon slowly going back up to 7. Oklahoma also crawling back in at 8-2, despite getting their ass whooped by Texas, who's now all the way down here. Notre Dame is at 9. Alabama stays in the top 10, but drops 6 spots. I would give it to them. They definitely are a better team than BYU and Utah, who are at 11 and 12 for the Big 12, respectively. Then Miami's at 13. Vandy stays still at 14. Again, they've had 2 losses. The only 2 teams they played that are good, Alabama and Texas, they've lost to, and they still might make the playoffs. I think they'll get smacked in the playoffs, but they still might make it. USC at 15, again, they might make the playoffs if they can upset in the Big Ten Championship if they can get there. Georgia Tech is at 16. Needs to win out to make the playoffs, in my opinion. Otherwise, the ACC is kind of screwed. Like, imagine if Georgia Tech wins the ACC, but it's a 2-loss team, they'll barely make it. Miami probably won't make the playoffs, or won't make the big the ACC championship, but they're the highest ranking team, so the ACC is in trouble. Texas falls 7 spots to number 17. Michigan and Virginia at 18 and 19 have not moved. Tennessee at 20 have a lot of new non-ranked teams. Illinois back in the top 25, which I think is ridiculous, and here's why. Let's look at they're 7 and 3, but let's look at their losses. They get blown out by Washington, and they get blown out by Ohio State, and they get blown out by Indiana. Like, why are they in the top 25 with 3 blowout losses? And look at their other wins. Not like a team, not like a team, not like a team. This is their one good win right here. Everyone else is dog water. They do not deserve to be in top 25 whatsoever, and it's really frustrating that they're in here. I apologize if you're an Illinois fan, but it makes no sense that they should be in here. If they're in here, they should be way down here. Missouri's in, back in. Houston's in for the first time, I believe. Tulane's back in for the first time. Now, Tulane is at number 25 in the nation. However, they are in the playoffs right now at the 12th seed because they are top 5 conference championships. Top 5 conference champions get in. So a 24 ranked team will get in the playoffs ahead of all these teams, potentially. Which, I get it, but like, seriously, come on. Let's go into the standings real quick. American Conference. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 or 5-1 teams. So South Florida is out. Memphis is 4 and 3. It's out. North Carolina Panthers, surprisingly, is 5-1. So within, I think one of these two teams right here, Tulane or North Texas, will win the conference. Personally, I would like to see North Texas make the playoffs. That'd be pretty cool. ACC again. These 4 teams, 1, 2, 3, 4. Miami again probably will not make the playoffs. Probably not make the conference championship, but will make the playoffs because they are the highest ranking ACC team. But it's tough right here. Like, Georgia Tech has to pretty much win the conference if they want to get in my opinion. Same with Virginia. They have to win out. These teams have to win out. They're not making it, and they're not making it to the playoffs. Big 12. These are teams probably will get in. If Utah wins out, they might get in, but if they win out, that means that some of these teams might get bounced out. Like, worst case scenario, Utah gets in, and Texas Tech, I don't know. Maybe if Utah wins out, they might upset someone. I don't know. USC 6-1. Who do they play? They play Oregon. Does Indiana play Ohio State this year? They do not. They got one more game. They're gonna go undefeated. Let's check the stats real quick before we head on to the next week. Drew Messmeyer is in the top 5. This is a cool story he hadn't watched. I've mentioned him before, but Google him and that's an amazing story. Hardy back at number 1. Kewan Lacey from Mississippi. Ole Miss is back in here. Jeremiah Love is in here. Receiving. The only guy. Well, here's a bigger school of Florida State, but they kind of suck this year. So the only ranked team to have a receiver in here is USC. All right. Week 13, what we got? Rutgers, Ohio State should be a blowout. They're favored by spreads 31 points. A&M for Stanford, blowout. Missouri vs. Oklahoma. Now OU is only favored by 7-ish points. But I think Oklahoma can win this game by 24 tops, especially at home. I think that Oklahoma will take care of business here, and will push Missouri to under 500 in the Big 12. Miami and Virginia Tech. Charlotte and Georgia. Easy game after their defeat of Texas. Eastern Illinois. Here's Alabama. Blowout. Big time game here. If USC wins this game, they might get into the playoffs. However, if they lose this game, they are out. Same thing with Oregon. If Oregon loses this game, it will be tough to stay in the playoffs. They might be a super low seed, but this is a really big game for both teams, for sure. Because I don't think Ohio State or Indiana will lose the rest of the season. Even when Ohio State plays Michigan, I think it's going to be a blowout. Syracuse versus Notre Dame should be a blowout. Kentucky versus Vandy. This, keep an eye on this game. Kentucky might finally pull off a big upset right here. Arkansas versus Texas. I mean, last year this was a closer game than anticipated. Texas only favored by 8 points. They are at home. I think Arkansas has one of the fantastic offense. Fantastic offense. But their defense is one of the worst in the nation. Texas has one of the best defenses in the nation and not so good of an offense. But Texas is finally playing really bad defense. I think that Texas is going to wallop Arkansas. This will be a 28-point game. Minimum 21-point game right here. Mark it down. Tulane and Temple. Tulane, again, trying to make the playoffs as one of the top 5 ranked conference champions. Kansas State and Utah. Kansas State having a down year, but could pull off a big upset right here. Michigan and Maryland. Michigan eyeing that chance to go beat Ohio State again, like last year. Pull off a huge upset. See if they can do it. I highly doubt it. TCU and Houston. Pittsburgh and Georgia Tech. Pittsburgh could pull off an upset right here. It would be huge, and it would ruin Georgia Tech's chances making the playoffs if they lose this game. In my opinion, they have to win. They really do have to win out. Tennessee and Florida. Potential upset right here. Tennessee's only favored by 3.5 points, and they're on the road at the Swamp. Keep an eye on this game as well. Illinois and Wisconsin. I honestly hope Illinois loses. Like, why are they in top 25? It really upsets me. BYU and Cincinnati. Cincinnati could get a huge win right here and would definitely hurt BYU if they lost this game. Arizona State and Colorado, who are 1-6 in the Big 12. I gotta tell you, Deion Sanders should have never left Jackson State. But that's it for Week 12. We're getting close. Then Week 14 is the last week, so we got 2 more weeks of regular season going to an end, and it's been a good one. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more content. As always, this is Easy3 signing out.